Oh,
Hi, Dr. Sims. This is my girlfriend Edie, my
hi.
favorite Lebanese lesbian.
Hmm.
And we're here to talk about race, and queerness and everything in between about and being an American citizen. Um,
Capitalism,
Capitalism, yes, capitalism,
media.
mental health, media. Do you want to like talk about like how like what you're doing in college?
Oh, I'm a film major.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been taking a media criticism class, we've been really going into like race and like queerness. So I think it'll be interesting to like talk about with
Yes,
you.
so definitely a lot of intersectionality here.
Mhm.
Um, so when I think about like my daily experience as like a white person, honestly, I think like the privilege of being white is that I don't have to think about my race ever.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that like goes for both of us.
Hmm.
Like I don't really ever like think about the fact that I'm like white.
Hmm.
I like forget about it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's not something that it's something that it's really easy to take for granted. But like when you start diving into this stuff, you start realizing like, oh my gosh, people are like discriminated against, like going like through that every single day. I know that because when I thought I was straight, like I never thought about my sexuality ever. And
Hmm.
then like when I realized that I was lesbian, then I like started thinking about it all the time.
Hmm.
Not necessarily that that's a bad thing, but that it does like put weight on your shoulders.
Yeah. And like you said, like I think it's rare for me to think about my race just like in daily life, except
Hmm.
for when maybe I'm in spaces where white is not the majority. Then
Mm,
I become very like conscious of my race. And I think like that mainly just comes from like being a good friend to like the people that I love and taking into consideration other people's just like backgrounds.
right,
So,
right,
mhm. And I know I can like get away with more things because I'm white.
right,
So I like try to use that for like good.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
I definitely think it's like really easy to be culturally ignorant when you're white. Especially like living in America. I mean, I went to like an evangelical school. It was crazy. And I like realized that I learned everything wrong. Like everything about history and everything was just wrong. And so I didn't learn about really like any other cultures or anything like that, but what I like did learn was that America was like the best. And then all the other countries besides um like the UK, Canada, like whatever, like those like areas were third world countries that were like poor. And then they would always show pictures of like malnourished like children of color to like
Yeah.
illustrate their point that like, oh, you should be so lucky that you're living in America.
Right.
And I think that like stark contrast of wow, this is like really extreme suffering, poverty, discrimination. And then in contrast to how it presents itself like in America, I thought that like we didn't have any issues with that because
Hmm.
I really thought that like discrimination was slavery. Um
Hmm.
and was like the extreme forms of discrimination that I had like been presented with. Um
Hmm.
and I think that's why a lot of times it's easy for white people to fall into the trap of saying, "Oh, I don't have white privilege because I'm like still struggling and I'm white."
Hmm.
And I think it's like, well, just because you're white doesn't mean you don't have problems, but your problems aren't because you're white, you know?
Right. Yeah. Um, and adding on to your point of like seeing quote like third world countries, these
Mhm.
like malnourished kids, whatever. Um, I think something that you talk about in psychology a lot is like looking at the symptom and not the root, and that being
Right,
like a major issue.
right,
And if you actually look at the root of this issue, guess what? Colonization.
right,
These countries are poor because,
right.
you know, a colonizing country came in and kind of basically ruined their economy. Um, but yeah. So, and then additionally, I think that I've heard a lot of arguments on behalf of like white centrist slash right-leaning people who are like, you know, I'm not racist or like there's not really racism because I'm
Hmm.
not calling people slurs,
Right.
you know? And while yes, that may be true, you're not like committing hate crimes or like calling people slurs. Unfortunately, the racism is built into the system that we live in.
Right.
So when we say all cops are bad, it's not that every cop is a bad
The
person,
system is bad.
but because there is no good cop because it is not possible to be a good cop
Right. And we
because the
talked
system
about
is
like
bad.
in this class that I'm doing this like conversation for,
Hmm.
that the whole like police enforcement, like law enforcement police system originated from slavery. Like basically just trying to catch like slaves that had escaped their masters and bring them back. And they were extremely obviously brutal, and cruel and horrific. So I think like if we look at the root of, the police, we can obviously see why it's not beneficial at all. And they're not really ever the ones who stop crime,
Hmm.
like ever.
Yeah. And even like black cops are bad cops.
Oh
They
yeah, it's
are,
everyone.
yeah, they are still serving a system that is racist, even though it's racist against them and their families.
Well, right, yeah. And I think, that is definitely sort of a sign of oppression as well, is like
Hmm.
trying to kind of
Make the system work for you.
make the system work for you and, get on the good side of your oppressor. And you kind of think, well, if I agree with them, if I, show that I can overcome these challenges, then I
Hmm.
will be one of them.
Hmm.
And that's just not the case.
Hmm.
I think that's definitely something that a lot of like minorities can just fall into, is like just trying to gain the validation of their oppressor.
Right. Yes. So I had this discussion with my brother where he was like, racism is like biological, it's psychological, it is innate within our being to be racist. And he was pointing out studies where kids would rather like play with a kid who looks like them versus a kid who like doesn't look like them. And while I do recognize that like
That is true.
to some extent,
Mm.
we find familiarity and we find comfort in things that like look like us. But here's the thing, adults don't act like that. Like
Right.
when you're a kid, it's like a lot different. Um, but slavery and discrimination have existed for a very long time. And at the dawn of human history, it was more about xenophobia, where it was like, you're different from me because you live in a different place or you have different practices. And so, therefore, I hate you, I'm wary of you, I'm going to overtake your country and enslave you. The argument is like, white people have enslaved white people, like, whatever. Yes,
Yes.
because
Yes.
because of, conquering and pillaging and taking advantage of other people. I think this idea of like actual like so discrimination and hierarchies have existed for a very long time. But I think that the racist aspect comes into play when it was such an easy way to differentiate between who is at the top and who is at the bottom. And I think because capitalism follows the path of least resistance, it was really easy for the colonizers to say, okay, this guy looks like me, so he's safe. This guy doesn't look like
Hmm.
me, so he must be of
And
like
it
a
was
lower
easy,
class. And it
like
was
to
easy.
racially profile, like we see today with
Right.
Hispanic people, um,
Hmm.
with like the immigration and the ICE and all that.
Hmm.
Like they literally will look at people who are US citizens. Some of them have been living in the US for hundreds of years, and then will say that they are not American. And
Hmm.
then they will say that then the ICE will try to, deport them, whatever. I
Hmm.
think like something also we talked about in this class is like what it means to be like an American. And I think it's interesting that when we think of an American, we think of a white suburban individual, when
Hmm.
really like America was supposed to be like the melting pot, like just everything coming together. Like America was not really supposed to have a solid identity because it was made up of so many identities. And I think now it's like we need to preserve American identity, but whatever really was American identity in the first place,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And if we want to be technical, it was Native
Native
American.
Americans, yeah.
And so I think honestly, to be American is to all share in this same history of being violent against Native Americans. I think that is our like
Yeah.
common ground, honestly. I
Great.
think that is what makes us American. And, slavery, Native American people were enslaved as well,
Hmm.
but unsuccessfully. And so, I don't know. So this racial hierarchy was kind of formed based off of how you look.
Hmm.
Um, and it was like really easy.
Right.
Um, so capitalism does the same thing where it discriminates against it. There has to be, in order for capitalism to work, there has to be a lower class. There has to be a lower class. And it's really easy to keep that lower class all looking and acting and culturally the same. So I
And
think
keep
that,
them wanting to be the upper class.
right, exactly.
Hmm.
And so I think racism is dependent upon capitalism. I think xenophobia is probably arguably like biological or psychological just because of like the fear of like other people. But I think true like racism is purely a capitalist invention.
Oh, 100%. And also, children pick up a lot of things. Children pick up more than we give them credit for. And even a toddler has already been accustomed to the ways of this world, and they see the differences. Like I think that if anything should just show us that like like this type of oppression is still very much alive and real, unfortunately. That like even children are picking up on it and just resorting to what they know and like being with people that look like them. But I think also a lot of children are forced into only knowing people who look like them because of the class system, and that sort of separation of neighborhoods. Like it's literally just like glamorized segregation. Like this whole idea of
Mhm.
like neighborhoods and like wealthy areas, like low income areas. So I think a lot of children don't even have the opportunity to be around people who are like of diverse cultures.
Mhm. Yeah. I just watched a interview with James Baldwin,
Love
one of
him.
my favorite authors of all time,
Yes, love.
and artists. He's amazing.
Hmm.
Um,
I'm an English
and
major, so I like read all
yes.
that.
Yes, you understand the
Yes.
obsession.
Yes.
And he was talking about how we are a predominantly, decidedly white Christian nation. The
Hmm.
Christian identity is very important to us.
Right.
And he quoted somebody, I forgot who he quoted, um, who said that the most segregated time in America is noon on a Sunday, where everyone goes to
When they
church.
go to
The
church.
black churches, the white churches, that is the most segregated time in America. And he was talking about how it's very telling that in a Christian nation where religion should be the common ground, Christianity and religious practices are the most segregated
Oh,
part of
100%.
America.
100%.
And it's extremely telling.
Well, and while they say that we are a Christian nation, we are founded on Christian beliefs, whatever they want to position it as, they also say, these same people, like the right wingers, centrists, whatever, also say that there should be freedom of religion and freedom of everything. So it makes no logical sense. How are you going to say that everyone should abide by Christian law, Christian doctrine, and then also say, oh, but we're a free country? And then they'll ban abortion. And then be
Mm,
like, oh, but no, you shouldn't be allowed to do that because the Bible says like you shouldn't do
right.
that. It's like, well, what if I don't want to follow the Bible? So it's like it's all like religious freedom, but they want you to freely choose Christianity. That is the only like little sliver of freedom you have
hmm
in their minds, and it's just crazy how they like position it.
It's a cult.
It is a cult, and I can say that because I literally like grew up like in that
hmm
circle. And the people, the girls are pregnant, didn't go to college. Some of them, you know, some most of them said the ones that did go to college, they said that they were just there for like the Mrs. degree. And, like they admitted that they thought that was like funny and like a good thing. So I do think it's definitely normalized also. And now with social media too, it's like an aesthetic. Like you'll see people being like turning off my brain when I'm with my boyfriend, or like you'll see people being like the day in my life as a stay-at-home girlfriend. It's like it's really not a flex to be financially dependent upon a man who could leave you, abuse you, etc. at any point.
hmm
Like, what will you do in that situation? And I think it's like just more of like getting women into more vulnerable situations. Like even what we see with the like considering degrees not professional anymore. So that way women cannot take out, well, not just women, but these female dominated fields are like we're seeing like counseling, teaching, etc. are now not professional, so you can't take out as big of a loan. So that obviously paywalls the industry like even further, so less people are going to be doing it. And I think it's like just this whole like large plan of how to get like white women specifically
hmm
at home with white men having white babies.
Yeah. Yeah, because those cuts will disproportionately affect people and women of color.
Oh yeah, more so than anyone, I think. Um, so let's talk about how racism has changed in light of the 2024 election. Um, and the ways that we see it now, like leading up to like before leading up to the election and now like, post election, it's been like a year. Feels like it's been many more years than that. But uh I think obviously the biggest thing is going to be like ICE. And I think with Trump specifically, I think this whole MAGA culture is really interesting to talk about too, because Trump gained all of his popularity by saying the quiet part out loud.
Yes.
People loved him because he would just blatantly say the most discriminatory things and get away with it. And somehow people were like, "Oh, thank God he's speaking what we're all thinking. He's so real."
hmm
And it's crazy. Like, why does authenticity have to be positioned as cruelty? Like, if somebody is just being like level-headed and regular, oh, they're not being authentic. And I
hmm
do agree with the distrust in like American politics that a lot of
hmm
the things they say is just complete like manipulation and,
hmm
tactics. But I do think that with Trump, it was all very strategic from the beginning of he was going to position himself and separate himself differently than all of the other presidents that came before him. And he was going to become this public figure because he was never even like even in the political sphere. Um, and I think that the way that he has, you know, created this cult, this fan base is is what has created the racism that we're seeing right now. But it started all the way back in 2016. Um, I think,
Build a wall.
yeah, the build the wall, the build the wall. And it was just we're like I think Americans are always looking for like a simple solution to their problems. And
Hmm.
it's very easy to say, oh, the reason why we're struggling is because these immigrants are coming into their country and taking our resources.
Hmm.
When in reality, it's actually people like Trump that are prohibiting you from succeeding. And like they do not want you to succeed. They want you to stay uneducated. They want you to stay low income, whatever.
Hmm.
Um, I just think that advertisement of Trump's campaign like created an entirely different attitude because my parents will say, I mean, not my dad is definitely more conservative. So my mom will say that she feels that we had more freedoms and less discrimination back in like 2005. And my mom's a white woman, so do not take her word for this. But do not take her word for this. But um and she did live in New York City, so as you know, it was all different types of people were more so accepted there. But it is kind of interesting because I could kind of see that. I feel like once Trump came in, everyone wanted to point the finger for Trump's mistakes.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about Trump's like voter base, or at least the portion of his voter base that is impoverished white people or
Hmm.
lower income white people slash rural white people. Those rural white people are also the ones who voted for Obama.
Oh yeah.
Not because, and it's because that these people, I, they're not stupid. And I say that in like, we don't give them enough credit for, we don't take their emotions like seriously. They are suffering, they're struggling, especially because of like the 2008 financial crisis,
Hmm.
and they're going to vote for the person who they believe will solve their problems.
Hmm.
And at the time, that used to be Obama.
Hmm.
But now it's Trump because he is now pointing the finger. Yeah, pointing the finger
Hmm.
at the reason you're impoverished is because of the immigrants. Or it's
Right.
because, or the reason that like your kid isn't or is like effeminate or like emotional is
Hmm.
because of the trans people,
Right.
you know? And this inflammatory language is like so powerful to desperate people, you know?
Right. And we've seen that the inflammatory, like, there was a complete shift. Social media and supporters of social media used to be liberals, used to be more so democratic. But all of a sudden, around Trump's campaign, it seemed like there was a shift happening where the right was actually the people in support of social media. And it's when they realized that spreading mass false information online could benefit their political party that they were in full support of it and negotiated with these social media companies to allow this information and present it as truth and then further allow allow political and extremely supposed to be sophisticated public figures go onto social media, say the most inflammatory things possible to generate the most clicks possible to then create this sort of complete unrest. And then that was working out for the politicians because they were getting more attention on their campaigns. And then it was working out for the social media companies because they were getting more clicks and more, you know, um more engagement. So I definitely think that like the supporting of social media changing is also because of Trump. Um and like that whole era.
Hmm. Yeah, and just like technology in general has always been very left,
Like
um
progressive, yeah.
yes, very progressive, very left, very future. But like you said, I think when they realized that that could only take them so far, um then they switched. And it kind of goes to show that companies will do anything or say anything in order to kind of get ahead.
Oh, like
And
yeah, there
there's
are no
no
ethics when it comes to
moral.
capitalism. It's all
Yeah,
about money.
yeah.
Mhm.
And yeah, they realized that if they got the conservatives on board, then they would get more money because also the Democrats and the liberals, they like to pass a lot of laws,
Hmm.
and the tech companies do not like all of the laws. Um, but the irony about all of this, like, you know, the irony about white people supporting Trump, supporting capitalism, supporting whatever, the patriarchy,
Hmm.
at the end of the day, this harms you as well.
Right.
This harms white men as well.
It harms everyone.
Yes. And there's a reason why, and I'm not about to do the whole men's mental health thing, but
Oh God.
there's a reason why white men are leading the suicide rates.
Of course.
And it's not because white men are oppressed.
Toxic masculinity and guns.
Yes. And yeah, and I think they feel like, especially with like masculinity kind of having like a crisis right now, they don't have anything to believe in. And that's why we also see this like influx of like religion and Trump, because if you can believe in Trump or
Right.
if you can believe in religion, then that gives you something to believe in.
Right. And that's why
But I
we've
think
seen like
it's
an
like,
increase in Bible sales
right.
as the state of our country has just completely declined. And like that's not a good thing. A lot of times Christians try to position that as a good thing. It's not. That's a terrible sign that people are
Hmm.
looking for any inkling of hope.
Right. And this like crisis of masculinity definitely applies to like men of color as well. But
Hmm.
I think that there is such a community identity
Hmm.
within um like these like um just like non-white like spaces, that there's like a community to believe in, that there's a group to believe in, you know? And so yeah, but I think like black men are definitely victims of the patriarchy and
Oh,
definitely, I mean,
100%.
obviously victims of capitalism, but like there's this YouTuber FD Signifier. He's awesome. He talks a lot about, he's a professor. He talks a lot about like race. And so these are not my words. These are kind of his words. Um that misogyny within like the black community is really um awful and really prominent. And I think that's because what I was like, if you're like a black man, um, not trying to speak on behalf of black men here, but I'm trying to convey the message that this YouTuber was kind of talking about. Um, that if you're a black man, I think you already feel kind of put down by society a lot. And it's kind of the thing where it's like, okay, well, at least I'm not the bottom of the barrel. Or like black men have more of a masculinity to prove, or like a security in their masculinity to prove,
Right.
because society, like white society and the patriarchy deems it so, you know.
Right. And I also think it's interesting, like the way that they position masculinity within the stereotype of black men,
Hmm.
because white people and oppressive systems will say that masculinity is essentially violence, and like I don't want to say, they position masculinity as violence. And then they say that white men are the most masculine and like the best men. And then they also say that black men are not good because they are the most violent, causing the most crime. So it's like, so I'm confused here because I
Hmm.
thought that you said that like getting in like fights and starting these whole things is what being a man is about, because that's what you're essentially saying when you
Hmm.
create this system. I think that's really interesting. I think also how there's a lot that men, okay, intersectionality. Like obviously when we're talking about a black man and then we're talking about like a black woman, like something that we also talked about in class was that like a black woman is not a woman first. She is a black
Hmm.
woman. She is black before she is a woman.
Hmm.
And I think that's also like, themes of femininity, how like frailty and paleness and all that is perceived as feminine. I think, and then also within the slaves, if femininity is all about serving people and all about like obedience, then why wouldn't the black women be the most feminine? It doesn't make sense to me.
Hmm.
And I'm sure that there's someone way more eloquent and like someone way more researched and like developed on this topic that has like explained this. I just don't, it's all, if you really look at it, you'll see that it's all so counterintuitive.
Yes, I think that like a lot of minorities, actually, I think everybody is put in between, put inside of a double standard. Um, but like I think black people in particular have been seen as gender deviants.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I think that there's no way you can critique like a black person's gender or sexuality. There's no way you like can't do it because
Mm-hmm.
they're seen as like gender deviants.
Right.
Um, and I think like honestly this comes out of like society's hatred for sex.
And you
Where
wrote a phenomenal essay on this. Shout
well,
out.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm making a film about it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's in the works.
Yes.
But I think sex as power and who allows to have sex and who is allowed to impose sex and who allows to enjoy sex and what sex is for, all these things, um, are the root of a lot of the misogyny and racism and discrimination that we see
Mm-hmm.
today. Um, I think because there's this insecurity in sexuality, especially on behalf of men, sex becomes evil, sex becomes unholy, sex becomes not godlike.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're trying to make somebody out to be evil, not godlike, whatever, then of course you're going to say they're hypersexual, you know? And I think we see that with like black men, where you know, white people are inherently better or smarter because they're not
The like eugenics thing.
right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, so a form of like racism is like telling these people that they are sexual deviants.
Right.
And I think to say that black women enjoy sex more than like white women or like whatever this like notion is of like black women being like hypersexual um is so indicative of how our society like views sex. Um so
Right.
all of these things just like intertwine with each other. It's like very interesting.
Right. Right. And like I don't know if this is fully appropriate. So we might end up cutting this out. But like when we think about a lot of white men have kinks for women in marginalized groups. Um, like a lot of men fantasize about like playing slave master with a black woman. Like that is crazy. That is genuinely crazy. And they or like, I've heard a lot of stuff about how white men want to marry Asian women or immigrant women because they feel that their culture is more so about serving the man. And then that way they can say, oh, if you don't treat me in all these ways that I expect you to, you can't live here anymore in the US. So our marriage and your behavior is intrinsically tied to your citizenship.
Hmm.
So that's also like how abuse continues.
Hmm.
So that's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, continue.
Um, just that like Hispanic women are seen as hypersexual. Honestly,
And they're
men have,
hypersexualized in the media as
well,
well.
yes. It's insane how these like things seep into the media that we consume and kind of reinforce these societal like understandings. It's like I don't know, it's like really meta, but I think like men will call any woman who is not white hypersexual
Oh,
because that is a way to demean them and a way to take away their like humanhood
hmm.
um or like their worth as like a person. And I also think like
Well, they also do that with just sex in general. If you
well
are
yeah.
a woman who has engaged in a lot of sexual behaviors, you are no longer a person. You no longer have the right to consent or to not consent. I can do whatever I want to you because you are essentially everyone's game at this point,
Mhm.
which is so problematic and I think goes back to like what you're saying.
Mhm. Yeah. Um and I think additionally with men being kind of insecure about sex or like being aroused or like being attracted to somebody, um they feel threatened by being aroused by a woman,
Right.
and that is why they hate
And
women.
creation envy, womb envy.
Creation envy, womb envy, yes, all
Hmm.
these things. We don't have time to go into it
We do
because
not.
I've written essays and I have made
Mhm.
films about this because I am obsessed with this topic. But they feel threatened by being aroused by a woman, so that's why they hate women. And if they are aroused by a woman who is not white, that is even more threatening to
Right.
them, and even more of a reason to label these women as like hypersexual. And I think they feel insecure about being attracted to a minority more so because historically it has been socially unacceptable.
Right.
Hmm.
Right. And I think there's also though something appealing about that to them
Hmm.
because it is taboo.
Hmm.
Um,
Men love taboo.
right, right. So I think that's really interesting. And also the idea of like men in the sexual space loving everything that's supposed to be um wrong or everything that's supposed to be like thinking about the men who fantasize about like minority women or raping women and all this stuff. How come the sexual space has become solely a place where you can assert dominance? Like, why is that the entire point of male sex at this point?
Yeah. Yeah. Because like if they like feel threatened by women or like people of color out in the world, then maybe it'll be acceptable to express that frustration like
And then
in
there's a
bed.
shared camaraderie with men talking
Mm-hmm.
about it amongst other men. And
Mm-hmm.
they all agree with each other and perpetuate this narrative. And then everybody else is just supposed to go along with it. This includes obviously all minorities, all genders, everything. Everyone is just supposed to say, oh, yes, this is fine, this is right. Like, no one's allowed to comment on it. And if you do, then you become their next target.
Right. And especially consider the stereotype of black women or honestly or like Hispanic women um being quote being
Oh, right.
aggressive because I think white men or like society at large is so not used to a black woman like standing up for herself that suddenly she is aggressive. And
Right.
unfortunately, I see this way too often in the year 2025
Mhm.
in queer artistic spaces.
Oh, oh
Is
yeah. And I
it
think the
is
whole thing
crazy.
too with like people saying that they're so progressive and they're a liberal and this, scratch a liberal, racism bleeds. Like we all know that, quote the idea. And it's so true because I mean, especially with older liberals and like there is slight differences. The whole two-party system needs to be completely dismantled. And I don't think that it even is a two-party system anymore because it's all just for money at the end of the day.
Yes.
Um,
It's all capitalism.
it's all capitalism. I digress. But but wait, what was I saying?
Oh, liberals, white liberals,
Oh,
old white
yes, white
liberals.
liberals literally will act like they're the most progressive people on the planet, and then they'll say the most insane but discreet comment that kind of makes you think like that didn't like feel or sound right, but I don't know why. And I think that's the whole thing too, is like we think that a lot of people think that if you can just say you're a liberal or that you're progressive, then you're exempt from all of these issues. So if you are queer, if you are an artist, if you are an active member of these spaces, oh, you are completely exempt from the weight of bearing the weight of potentially contributing to discriminatory narratives.
Hmm. Yeah. And like, this idea of like, oh, I know what it's like to be oppressed. So therefore, I can speak on behalf of oppressed people and I can
Right,
never
and
be
it's like
an
there are so
oppressor.
many ways to be oppressed. I
Yeah.
mean, like me as like um a cisgender white woman, um I have a completely an upper middle class have a completely different experience of misogyny and oppression in that sense than does a woman of color who comes from a low income background, or a trans woman, or people of that have all these overlapping marginalizations. Like, there's not one way to be oppressed, and even if there was, pe you cannot speak on the behalf of all of people for yourself, like
Hmm.
with anything.
Hmm. Yeah. And like, I'm a lesbian. I know it's like really obvious. I know it's really obvious. I like look like a lesbian. Um,
Well, yes, but you're not in your like full like lesbian attire right
garb.
now.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
You're off duty.
I think I just like the haircut. I don't know.
Yes.
But being queer, being gay, lesbian, bisexual, even non-binary in some cases, um, these are all a lot less visual. These are all a lot less visual minority groups.
Hmm.
You cannot, I know when I go into like really straight or like conservative spaces, I can like code switch and I can turn into that like straight sorority girl if I need to. Um, I can
I'm
do it.
sorry, I can.
No, I know it's hilarious. I've done it before. I'll do it again.
I could just not picture you like that.
It's really bad. I feel like a dog in like human clothing. But it works.
Hmm.
Um, but people of color do not have that luxury. And so I
Oh
think
no.
it's a completely different form of oppression. And to say that, and to presume that these queer spaces are exempt from racism is so ridiculous. It's very ridiculous.
Well, it's the same way that gay men are the most misogynistic people I've ever met.
Uh-huh.
And then they're like, "Oh, I can't be misogynistic. I'm gay." But like, you're fat and ugly. And it's like that's crazy. Like, oh my gosh, just because
Ooh.
you're queer does not mean you can go around saying whatever you want. Like, this is like it's just insane. And um I think also what you're saying, like I'm a lesbian. I look very feminine. I am a very feminine individual. I think, I hate how like lesbianism is associated with like masculinity. Whatever, that's a different topic. But nobody ever thinks that I'm a lesbian. When I tell people that I'm a lesbian, they get like wide-eyed, like, like animal in the zoo, sort of situation. And I think for me, I walk around with all the privileges of a straight person. Like even more so than you do.
Hmm.
Um, so I think like there is definitely even differences of oppression within even just say lesbianism itself. There are many different ways to be a lesbian. A mask presenting very obviously queer lesbian has a different experience than I do as an extremely feminine, straight presenting lesbian. A lot of times it's not even about the group you're a part of, it's about the group you look like you're a part of.
Hmm.
And I think for me, my queerness is invalidated in different ways than maybe a mask lesbian's is. Like for me, it's definitely like, oh, look, I literally have been told before, um, wait, why are you a lesbian? You're so pretty.
Who said that?
One of my family members, like extended family. Yes. And it's so disheartening and interesting. And yeah, I think like so my queerness is invalidated because like, oh, if you're feminine, you can't be a lesbian, or like that's so weird, or like, wait, what do you mean? Like, are you sure? Are you really sure? Maybe you just haven't met the right man, like that type of thing. But I think also, oh my gosh, there was something I wanted to bring up. It was so good. What was it?
I don't know.
Receive
I
my
have
air.
a point though
Okay,
whenever.
say it, say it.
Okay. Um, to bring it back to like oppression again, racism in queer spaces. One thing I've noticed, white people love playing oppressed. White people love
Oh,
playing
they love
oppressed
it.
because I think my sympathetic answer to that is that um and this is extremely apparent in white men. Um, that you want to have a reason for the suffering that you're experiencing under
Hmm.
capitalism.
Right.
And so I think,
And God forbid they blame their Lord and Savior, Donald J. Trump.
right, exactly.
Or
Um,
anybody who has, even just the system itself.
right. And like I even see this in like left-leaning
Oh,
spaces
yeah. Oh, yeah.
also that that you want to have a reason for your suffering.
We all do.
Yeah, exactly. And nobody wants to say it's capitalism because if you do, that's like a really scary existential crisis that you must enter
Right.
um after that.
And there's almost no way
Uh,
around it if you like live in America or like any,
right.
a lot of countries.
Yeah. Um, yes. And so, but my non-sympathetic answer is that white people are able to like have the aesthetics or like be interesting or like punk or like rebellious without actually being a part of like these minorities. Like we even see it in like beauty standards. Think about like the Kardashians
Oh,
who
white
have
women, yes. Take
turned themselves
yes,
racially ambiguous
yes.
because of the aesthetic.
They pick and choose characteristics of black women that they find appealing and then masquerade with it on themselves.
Hmm.
And then we'll still perpetuate the idea that like white women are prettier or like superior to black women. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, then why do you get lip filler? Why do you get BBLs? Like, why do you do all of this? Why do you appropriate their fashion?
Hmm. Yeah. And like, yeah. And to reference my sympathetic answer of the wanting to put a name to your like oppression, I like it's like it sounds ridiculous, but I see a lot of instances also of people, of like white people, or at least like white passing people, being like, well, I'm actually like 10% Native American,
Stop.
or like whatever. Like, what if I was
Mhm.
like, well, yeah, I'm Lebanese, so
Right, right,
I can speak on this race-related issue.
right,
Like that, I don't know. It's just crazy.
right. Look, okay, in my family is, New York, New Jersey, Italian Americans. My great grandparents immigrated from Italy. There was a complete and stark difference between Northern Italians and Southern Italians. Northern Italians were the wealthy, lighter skinned, better people. And the Southern Italians were the darker, less financially stable, worse people. And there are literally, because my family's made up of both Sicilian and Northern Italian, Northern Italian people. And there is literally still a rivalry. Like there is still a line in the sand. And it's so crazy to me how even in white spaces, there are so many ways to be white. For me, when I went to my like evangelical school, I was actually told that I was exotic. I wish that I was lying. I wish that I was making this up, but I was not. We did not have any black students or students of color. We like that was not a thing. Or like faculty members, like just none of it. And when I came and I was like a little bit tanner and I was had dark brown hair, that was exotic. And people were asking me like what I was. And I honestly think that's the first time I ever thought about my race. Because I was like, what? Like, I'd never even like, what are you talking about? I'm a white girl with brown hair. Like, what?
That's so funny. I like, yeah, and there's like a whole other conversation about how people are like, oh, I'm not white, I'm Italian.
Right.
But that's a conversation for another day. Um, and I think similarly, I think we can like share in this experience. My great grandparents came over from Lebanon in the 20s. That was also when they were like cracking down on immigration.
Right.
Um, and they didn't speak the language. They were fleeing the country because of political unrest. Um, and I think that they found a lot easier time assimilating because fortunately they were white and at least like white enough in order to get by and like able to like learn the language and like run a successful business. And immigrants who come from similar situations who did not look like my great grandparents are a lot worse off. And I think additionally, my great grandparents and my Lebanese like family became extremely patriotic in compensation because they were able to fit in.
Oh, mine did too.
And yeah,
They're
and
all
so
Trump, everything.
yes, exactly.
Mhm.
Because they need to feel some superiority and they also are so fixated on appearing
Right.
American and being patriotic. And unfortunately, that can become conflated with hating immigrants like you, like my great-grandparents, who who don't look like you and have a
Well,
rougher
and also
time
they have this
assimilating.
mentality of if I could make it, why can't you make it?
Exactly. You must be lazy.
You must be lazy, right?
Hmm.
Hmm. Yes, I was gonna just gonna say we're gonna wrap up,
Oh, okay.
but
That was good. I like that. That was
that was good.
enjoyable.
That was like nice. So, in summary, we talked a lot about queerness and the different ways that an individual can be oppressed and intersectionality. How one person who's experienced one form of discrimination cannot speak for all people who have experienced different forms of discrimination. We talked about kind of our own familial experiences with racism and the systemic hierarchies. Um, as like her great grandparents immigrated from Lebanon, mine did from Italy, and so I think we have like a similar experience of our families thinking that that America is the blessed place on earth because they came here as white people and made it. Um, Also, oh wait, sorry, what were you gonna say?
Sexual deviance,
Sexual deviance, talked about how sex plays a major role in discrimination, talked about toxic masculinity,
capitalism,
capitalism,
patriarchy.
all good things.
Mhm.
Yes. We talked about what it means to be white, the state of our country. Um, did we talk about anything else?
Um, the psychology
And
of
media. Hmm.
um we dabbled
We
in media
dabbled,
a
yeah.
little bit.
Mhm.
Um, I think that's it. Yeah.
Oh, we talked about the 2024 election, Donald Trump.
Yes.
Talked about the shift in social media
Social media.
supporters. And also AI. Like, I don't know that we didn't talk about this, but AI. There's a reason why, I'm just going to say this. There are so many reasons why the conservatives are obsessed with AI.
Mm,
Hmm. So,
yep.
yes, that's my summary statement.
Love. Well,
Mhm.
I had a great time.
Me too.
Thank you for
Thank you for
inviting me.
chatting with me. Thank you for being in this interview with me
Of
and
course.
having the important conversations.
Yes, I'm happy to help you out.
Mhm. Thank you.